The story of the Amityville House and what happened there is one of the most famous ghost stories in American history. What can be talked about that hasn't already been said about the house that sits at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York? Although today, it is now currently 108 Ocean Avenue, in an attempt to try and deter people from stopping and taking pictures, as well as lingering in front of the property. The paranormal activity that supposedly occurred there has Americans baffled and shaking their heads in question as to whether the property is really haunted or just a very brilliant hoax concocted by the former owners of the house. One thing we do know for sure is that the house did succumb to some very unfortunate circumstances. Most famously is when Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed his entire family in the middle of the night with no rhyme or reason as to why. Built in 1927, this large Dutch colonial waterfront house is 3 stories high, has 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, a basement, a boathouse, and overlooks the south shore of Long Island, New York. Since the beginning, the house at 112 Ocean Avenue has had quite the abnormal history. A database called diedinhouse.com allows buyers the chance to see the history of a home they would like to purchase. For $11.99, buyers can purchase a report to see if a home has succumbed to murders, suicides, and meth labs, to name a few. The report that came back for the home at 112 Ocean Avenue revealed that a man first died in the home in 1939 after a serious illness. 35 years later, 6 members of the DeFeo family were killed in the Long Island home. Shortly after, the Lutz family moved in, and they only lasted 28 days in the home before leaving in the middle of the night, claiming to have battled demonic forces the entire time they lived at 112 Ocean Avenue. When George and Kathy Lutz shared their story of what they went through at the Amityville House, it spread worldwide and became known as the Amityville Horror. One book and a few movies later, this house and the paranormal activity that surrounded it became one of the most famous horror stories in human history. With the facts that surround the DeFeo murders and the Lutz's stories, there does raise a lot of questions about both stories. One weird fact is that each member of the DeFeos were found face down in their beds with a shotgun wound in their backs. How is it that each member of the family was face down, number 1, and number 2, didn't wake up when they heard the gunshots going off inside the house? Not to mention, how come the neighbors of 112 Ocean Avenue didn't hear any gunshots in the middle of the night? A lot of people think that the Lutzes made the entire ghost story up in an attempt to cash in on the story. But that seems too huge of a gamble to take, with the Lutzes just purchasing the house, number 1, and number 2, leaving all of their belongings behind, including family photos, family heirlooms, and all of their property that they owned at the time, just seems like too huge a gamble for them. Throughout their lives, the Lutzes repeatedly denied that the story was a hoax, and maintained that the events that happened there were true to their word up until their death. I myself personally believe in the paranormal, and truly believe that something sinister happened in the 28 days that the Lutzes inhabited the house at 112 Ocean Avenue. One thing I noticed in my own research is how many times the number 13 appeared in the events that took place in Amityville. On November 13th, 1974, Ronnie DeFeo Jr. shot and killed his entire family. The Lutzes moved in just 13 months later after the DeFeo murders. On January 13th, 1976, the Lutzes spent their last full day at the residence after only being there for 28 days. In 2013, Daniel Lutz, one of the children who was 9 at the time, finally told his story of the events that happened at 112 Ocean Avenue and said that the stories were all true. Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are famous American paranormal investigators, did in fact investigate the Amityville House after the Lutzes fled. And they did in fact confirm that there was a malevolent presence there. Most famously was a photograph taken during the investigation showing a child with glowing eyes believed to be one of the DeFeo children. Perhaps the Lutzes suffered an incident like the one depicted in the 1988 film Beetlejuice, where the former residents died suddenly and found their spirits trapped in limbo inside their house. Once new tenants moved in, they did everything they could to try and scare them and drive them out. I mean, wouldn't you try to drive out intruders if they invaded your home? Every time I see the movie Beetlejuice, I imagine that is how the deceased DeFeos must have felt when the Lutzes moved in to their former home. So did something paranormal really happen to the Lutzes at the Amityville residence? Personally, I believe so. There are too many facts and details supporting the events. And who in their right mind back in 1976 would leave their entire lives behind and make up a story with no guarantee that any monetary wealth would come of it? And not to mention, there was no internet to skyrocket their fame and broadcast and exploit the story at the time. Due to the popularity of the story, the house has gone through some changes over the years in order to deter people from driving by and stopping to take pictures. Most noticeably, the creepy eye-shaped windows were changed to standard square-shaped windows. The house has had a few new owners since the Lutzes moved out, and they have not reported any paranormal activity that went on there during their stay. What do you guys think? Is it real? Is it fake? Did something paranormal really happen? Or was it a brilliant hoax created for fame and money? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This is Matt from Random Video Circus. Hit the subscribe button for more videos of America's most famous paranormal ghost stories. Thanks for watching.